You know, they say follow the money, okay? We had a conversation on the PBD podcast in January with our friend Bassem Youssef. It was contentious. It was disagreeable. We argued. We agreed on some certain things. We yelled. We listened. We did that for 2 hours. I think we did a 2-hour podcast. PBD said that Vinny and himself probably spoke for 10 minutes. Bassem Youssef and I were speaking for 90% of the podcast. At the end of the podcast, after arguing, I said the following: Bassem, at the end of the podcast, I'm going to shake your hand and I'm going to give you a hug. Because you're not my enemy. I'm not your enemy. You're Egyptian. Your wife is Palestinian. I'm American. I'm a proud American. I'm Jewish. I have family that lives in Israel. I have family that have served in the IDF. But I am America first. I don't speak Hebrew. I was bar mitzvahed. I go to Israel. I've been there 3 times. I don't speak the language. It is not my culture. It is not my people, so to speak. I'm American. But at the same time, I defend Israel. I'm a proud Zionist. So, but what the conversation that I had with Bassem was, Bassem, let's not be emotional. Let's not, I'm not crying. I'm actually snotting over here, guys. Clearly, I'm losing my voice and I'm a little under the weather, but the show must go on. I said, Bassem, I want to give you data. I don't want to just have a conversation about opinions. I want to give you data. So I said, I want to focus on 2 data points that you and I can discuss. Number 1 is gross domestic product per capita, GDP per capita. And number 2 is unemployment. Because I believe that capitalism lifts people out of poverty. And socialism and Marxism and collectivism and authoritarianism keeps people in poverty and keeps people poor. So I said, I want to go over some numbers with you. He proceeded to say that some of my data was racist. I said, what's racist about the data? He said, well, your undertone is racist. I sarcastically said, I'm sorry that I seem to have a sarcastic undertone, but as they famously say, facts don't care about your feelings, and the proof is in the pudding, and show me the money. Shout out to Jerry Maguire. So I want to show you guys some of the numbers I was talking with Bassem Youssef. We're going to follow the money. So GDP per capita, if you're not familiar with GDP, gross domestic product, gross domestic product is basically 2 things. What are the total goods and services that a country produces? And you divide that by the population. So the richest country in the world per capita, if you can punch in on that, is Monaco, correct?
Yes, sir.
What does the average person make a year in Monaco?
$240,000.
Okay, that is the average person in Monaco, the richest country in the world per capita. I'm going to throw some countries your way. You're going to scroll down until you see them. Number 9 on this list, the richest Arab country in the region is Qatar. Qatar, again, this is where a lot of people believe that Hamas are hiding out. A lot of the reason that Hamas has funding is from 2 countries. Number 1, Iran. You know, they say that Iran is the head of the snake. I actually disagree. I think it's the head of the octopus. Because if you cut off a snake, it dies. An octopus, if you cut off one of its arms, it still has 7 other arms and tentacles reaching elsewhere. So Iran funds terrorism all around the globe. They fund Hamas. They fund the Houthis in Yemen. They fund Hezbollah in Lebanon. They are the chief terrorist regime around the world. They are a social pariah. And we need to cut off at least one of the arms of the octopus. The ironic thing is that the Persian people who are held captive to Iran are great individuals. I know one. I work for one. His name is PBD. I pray for the day that the Iranians don't have to, the Iranian people can be freed from Iran. Anyway, I bring that up to say Iran and Qatar are funding a lot of the terrorism you're seeing. But Qatar is a very rich country, number 9 in the world on GDP per capita. By the way, going down the list, number 12 on this list is the United States of America, $76,000 per capita. You see the United States there? Okay. Number 23 on this list is Israel, $54,000 per capita per person. Number 24 is the UAE, another country in the region, UAE. If you're not following along, many Arab countries are wealthy. Many Arab countries don't have terrorism problems. Many Arab countries are not dealing with extremist groups or jihadi groups or calling for the death of America or Israel. Certain countries do. It's usually the poorer countries. We'll get there. The UK at number 31, GDP per capita, $46,000. Kuwait, another country in the Arab region, GDP, $41,000. Saudi Arabia, shout out to my Saudi friends who just put on the Live Golf event. Awesome guys. Awesome guys. 30,000 per capita. This list is going to change dramatically moving forward. Deep down the list is China. You know the average GDP per capita in China? They're the second biggest economy in the world. GDP per capita, $12,000 in China. That's how much the average Chinese person makes a year. So the average American, the two biggest economies in the world by GDP, United States, number one, China, sort of a distant second, catching up. But if you do GDP per capita, it's not even close. Moving right along, the people of Mexico, GDP per capita, make the same amount as China, about $1,000 less, $11,000. Colombia, and now we're going to go rapid fire. The following countries, the average person makes $5,000 to $6,000 a year. Colombia, South Africa, Jamaica, Iraq, El Salvador. Shout out to Nayib Bukele, what he's doing there in El Salvador. Then we're going to get into countries where the average person makes under $5,000 a year. Iran, Ukraine, Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, the West Bank and Gaza at $3,700 a year. Okay. Ukraine, Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, West Bank, Gaza, $3,700 a year. Continuing on. India, the average person in India, you know how much they make? $3,000 a year. Massive, massive country, largest population in the world. I believe they recently surpassed China. 1.5 billion people. I think China has 1.3. Their population is younger and growing. Chinese population aging and declining. Haiti. If you see what's going on in Haiti these days, there's a civil war brewing right now. The average person makes $2,000 a year. Ethiopia, $1,000 a year. And the bottom three in this particular list, imagine living in the following countries in the Middle East. Yemen. There's a civil war raging in Yemen. It's a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The average person in Yemen makes $650 a year. Syria. 500,000 people died in Syria this decade. Tens of thousands of people have died in Yemen. It might even be hundreds of thousands. Fact check me. The average person in Syria makes $420 a year. Lowest on the list, Afghanistan. The average person in Afghanistan makes $355 a year. Deep poverty, deep discontent. So you have countries like Qatar. You have countries like Israel in the Middle East. You have countries like the UAE. You have countries like Kuwait. You have countries like Saudi doing great. All these people are making money. You don't see a lot of terrorism there. Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Gaza, Lebanon, Jordan. These people are making under $4,000 or $5,000 a year. That's where you see a lot of terrorism. That's where you see a lot of issues that are being had. Unemployment rates. Let's focus on this rapid fire. The highest in the world, if you can pull this up, South Africa, 30%. Absolute disaster what happened in South Africa since Nelson Mandela. You have that thing you can pull up? Absolute disaster. South Africa was trending in the right direction. It is completely reverse course. It is an absolute disaster what is going on in South Africa. South Africa, by the way, was the country that was calling for genocide against Israel at the UN, which the UN said they are not. Again, at The Hague, to be clear. Palestine, 25%. See that? 25% unemployment. Haiti, Afghanistan. Haiti has a higher unemployment rate. Afghanistan has a lower unemployment rate than Palestine. Iran, 11%. Ukraine, 10%. Saudi Arabia, 5.5%. By the way, here in the United States, USA, UK, 3.6%. Israel, 3.5%. UAE, 2.8%. Qatar, lowest in the world, 0.1%. What's my point of showing you the money? What's my point of showing you the numbers? Follow the money. Imagine being a 20-year-old guy in Gaza. Imagine being a 20-year-old guy in Yemen, the Houthis. Imagine being a 20-year-old guy in Syria. Imagine being a 20-year-old guy in Afghanistan. Okay? You've got no job. You have no money. You have no prospects. Your country is broke. Your people are poor. You have no meaning. You have no purpose. I believe firmly that work gives you purpose and meaning to your life. You get recruited by an extremist group. Call it Hamas. Call it the Houthis. Call it Hezbollah. Call it the Taliban. They tell you death to America. They tell you death to Israel. They tell you death to the infidel. They will pay you and pay your family. There's a process called pay for slay. You will be a martyr. You will go down in history. You will practice jihad. What else are you going to do in that situation? I'll give you one example. I'll give you the answer, and the answer is boom. You commit suicide. You will take people with you. You will do whatever you need to do because you have no job. You have no money. You've been indoctrinated to a firm belief, and you get paid for it, and you go down as a hero and a martyr. What else would you do in their position? I empathize with those people. This is why GDP needs to be the sole focus of many of these countries, just like many countries are doing in the Middle East, not GDT, gross domestic terrorism. Continuing, Israel has now become the Silicon Valley of the Middle East. GDP per capita, other than Qatar, richest in the world, in the region. They are focused on economic growth. They are doing peace deals all around the region. A lot of people believe that on October 7th happened because they were very close to having a peace deal with Saudi Arabia. Everyone realizes that Israel is not the problem in the region. The problem in the region is one country and one country only, and that is Iran. Iran is the Shiite state, biggest state in the region. Saudi Arabia is the Sunni state, biggest state in the region is the Mecca. A lot of people acknowledge that it is Iran that needs to be dealt with. By the way, if you want to follow the money, the United States, where do they come into this? The United States has given $130 billion worth of aid to Israel since their founding in 1948. That was after World War II and the Holocaust. If you break that down, that is over 76 years, that is $1.7 billion a year. In 2023, the U.S. sent $3.8 billion in military assistance for Israel to buy weapons. After the Hamas attacks, the Biden administration requested an additional $14 billion in military aid. By the way, you can pull this up. There's a stat. You might say, all right, well, how much money are they giving to Gaza? Who gives to Gaza? Well, the number one country that funds the Palestinians, drum roll please, is the United States. The United States leads the league in funding the Palestinians. You can show that. Aid to Palestine has totaled $40 billion. Since 1992, they've spent all their money not on GDP, but on GDT. They spent all that money on bullets, bombs, and terror tunnels. I ask you, what else should be done if you're spending your money on this?
Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you like that one, click right here to watch the full SOSCAST. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.